everyone. Does this SolarWinds story ever go away? Another twist and turn here on Techstrong Gang. Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. It's Alan Jake Schimmel here for Techstrong Gang. Welcome. You know, you may be asking, why is he wearing sunglasses and a hat? Well, I'm here to tell you about our next big virtual event coming up. It's called Cloud Native 1.4/that out from the road. We're going to talk about why cloud native, just no matter where you are on the infrastructure map, what you're doing in terms of shift left or shift right, cloud native is there. It's our latest virtual event, and it's one for the road. So stay tuned. It's going to have a little bit of a Blues Brothers theme. We might see Jake and Elwood do something around that. But I'm going to take that off now so I can see what the heck I'm doing. Welcome to Tuesday here on Techstrong Gang. We've got a lot to go over with you, as well as some great folks to go over it with you. Let me introduce you to our gang today. First of all, joining us from Key West, 90 miles from Cuba or thereabout, on his boat. He's one of our resident security experts, the redoubtable Chris Blask. Hey, Chris, welcome.
Good to see you, Alan. Good to see you, folks. Yeah, I apologize for the U.S. Navy, Air Force flying jets over us during the call, but go USA.
All right. Excellent. All right, moving on from Chris, we're going to move to Hudson, Ohio. They didn't make a car over there, did they, Stephen?
No. We made an abolitionist here. No kidding. Yeah, John Brown. The infamous,
he
was made
John
here in
Brown.
Hudson. Yes.
Really? Not even a statue. Is there a
Fun
statue?
facts, right?
Yeah, look, you got to go with, sometimes you play the hand you dealt. But in addition to John Brown, Hudson's also the home of the one and only Stephen Foskett, founder, CEO, president of Tech Field Day, Gestalt IT, and Techstrong Gang member. Stephen, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. And I'll, for your Blues Brothers reference, I'll have some dry white toast, please.
Okay, I knew you would be the one to get that stuff. It's of an age. Anyway, thanks, Stephen. Moving on from Stephen, we're going to go up to Harrison, New York for our chief content officer, who also happens to be a bit of a Blues Brothers aficionado, Mike Vizard. Hey, Mike, welcome today.
All right, something gets in your way. Turn, right?
Yep, excellent. And then rounding out our gang, certainly not least, but I'm introducing her last because she's sitting right here on my left. It is our sustainability and all things green, Echo Insights analyst, editor, roving eye in the sky, Bonnie Schneider. Hi, Bonnie. Welcome.
Hi, Alan. Great to be here. Thank you for that introduction.
Thank you. All right. So we've got a great day here, Mike. We got some great stuff to talk about in addition to Cloud Native now, one for the road, or one from the road. What do we got? Kick us off.
Well, let's get started. So SolarWinds is being taken private for $4.4 billion by an investment firm called Turn River. And, by AI standards, of course, $4.4 billion is kind of chump change these days. But as it relates to ITSM, that's a fairly sizable number. And they're saying that they're going to eventually take this company public again. And, I always see these deals lately, and there seems to be a lot of them over the last 2 or 3 years. And I scratch my head, and I'd love to get your opinion about this, Alan. But these investment firms come in, they say they're going to take these companies private, but I almost never see them come back out of being private. It's like they're in this private equity state forever, and they never seem to actually go public again. So I'm kind of like, well, what is the point of all of this? And then maybe Stephen can weigh in on how it impacts IT folks.
Well, look, whenever I hear these deals and this kind of news, I'm always reminded of Gordon Gekko. And, breaking these things up for the constituent parts, and is the parts more valuable than the whole? And what is the real end game here? And when you talk to the PEs, generally, yes, this is always, this is, let's call this announcement one. We're taking it from public because we don't think the market's actually valuing it correctly. We're going to make it private. It's a cash cow. And then usually and then they always say in this stage of the game, we may take it public again down the road. They don't promise to. They talk about it. But usually the plan is something like, hey, we could take this sucker private. We could cut a lot of fat out. We're going to cut 10 to 15% right off the bat of fat out of this thing. Get it lean, mean, fighting machine. And maybe we'll do some acquisitions and tuck some other businesses in there that are accretive. And then at some point, we milk what we can out of it, but then we could, depending on market conditions, go public again with a rosier outlook, with a more, better evaluation, and make some money out of this. Because at the end of the day, this is all about the money. But you know what they say with PE deals, you got to break some eggs to make omelets. And a certain amount of these deals just go south, and these things wind up being sold to another, PE firm lower down the food chain for scavengers. It happens. I hope that doesn't happen with SolarWinds, in spite of what most people think of as SolarWinds. When they hear SolarWinds, they think of, unfortunately, the security incident of a few years ago. SolarWinds is actually a great company with a great business model, with great customers, worth every penny, I think, of the $4.4 billion valuation they're paying here. And I hope PE does them right, though, there's no guarantee when it comes to PE. Anyway. Stephen?
Steven, what's your take on this? Because I always get the sense that there is interest to be paid, and that adds to the cost of the business operating. And so what is the impact that has from an IT perspective that I should be thinking about here? Will the company continue to invest? Have you seen that historically, or do they wind up, to Alan's point, always trying to trim the fat to make the margins?
Well, it does seem like this is some sort of a game in the finance and PE world, where they're acquired by a PE company, loaded up with some debt, and then floated again on the public market. But that's being cynical. You asked about the impact on the IT market. Let's focus on that. SolarWinds actually has a great presence in the enterprise IT market. In fact, I should point out that SolarWinds is a very frequent Tech Field Day presenter, or was, in the previous regime. We had them present at over a dozen Tech Field Day events. We learned a lot about their products, and frankly, they have a really good market. In fact, it's been very difficult for other companies to compete with them, because they are so successful in the network management observability market. That's really what they've refocused on under the current CEO. And frankly, that's what the company has really kind of come out of this whole supply chain fiasco with, a decent reputation in that space. I feel like, as the CEO mentioned in the article reference here, that maybe going private is a way for them to rebuild without that constant quarterly scrutiny from Wall Street. I get that. I don't know if the price that's going to be paid in terms of the debt that's going to be taken on in order to take them public is going to be worth it. But I think it's worth noting as well that as of what I just looked at here, their stock price is right back where it was when they went public in 2018. So essentially, the company went up some and then down some. And then with this announcement, they're right back where they were. And, that's not a bad story. It's not like they were circling the drain or something here. So I think there is a good chance that they'll be taken private, that they'll refocus on their core assets. Maybe there will be some acquisitions made and they'll go public again. And frankly, I don't think IT people should be spending too much time worrying about the finance and PE antics that are related to all that.
Yeah, and you guys cover to your point, Stephen. The finance side of it is what it is. I think it's interesting that it is a story, right? This company started in 1998. And right at that time, I had taken over the Cisco firewall products, and we behind the scenes killed off all the security management efforts because it was a waste of time. Nobody was doing it at all. So right at that time, like these little SolarWinds, SolSoft, a couple others, we made them partners so we could say we had security management. But that was 27 years ago. We're now at the point where, and I can't help talk about supply chain. We all know about SolarWinds because of the supply chain incident in 2020. Now we're talking about it because of the significant acquisition in IT security management. These things are very closely related. It has taken 27 years to get where we are with ITSM right now because it's exponentially more complicated than building firewalls and installing them. And SolarWinds, Tim Brown, CEO there, smart guy. I think he's done a good job of steering company through all that. We'll keep talking about these sort of companies because this is the area. This level of complexity is necessary to run the systems we have, whether it's security management operations or the supply chain issue that they're so famous for as well.
I don't know. I have some experience with these types of deals, and frankly, there was times where companies I worked for, we spent most of our time trying to service the debt that was created by the activity. So we didn't really turn a whole lot of profit after that because the debt and the interest rates were such as they are. But Alan, the article suggests that we're going to see more of these types of deals. And just from a Wall Street perspective, are people exiting the public markets more, or are more companies going to go public? What's going on in that space over there?
I'm not going to take the bait on this one, Mike. But look, we're probably entering let's call it a relaxed regulatory phase, much like the go-go 80s, right? Where you can, find a dog with fleas, in the word of Gordon Gekko, load it up with debt, take your money out, hoist it back onto the public market or find someone else, or, break it up to its constituent parts or what have you, and look for the next, carcass to go after. And I'm not saying that's going to happen in this one, and I'm not saying anything bad about the PE involved in this one. But I think you're going to see, this is America, baby, right? This is what you want. You voted for it.
So I'm positive theory. And my theory is that part of this is also a way to address some technical challenges that are related to not having that quarterly number. It seems to me SolarWinds may need to reinvest into the core platform to turn the whole thing into more of an AI-driven platform and architecture, and that's going to cost a lot of money, and I'm not going to make my quarterly numbers doing that. And I'm positing, maybe, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a lot of companies in that position who are going to find themselves not able to withstand that quarterly kind of scrutiny, and we're going to see a lot more of this stuff driven by the fact that I need to redesign the business, rebuild the product in the age of AI.
Yeah, it really is too bad that Wall Street is so quarterly focused. I mean, I think the biggest representative of this story is Dell. Remember that Dell needed to get its house in order, and did, and is a much stronger company for it. I think that that's the case with many IT companies. I think a lot of IT companies and a lot of the both nerds and executives that I talk to say that they wish we didn't have this aggressive focus on quarterly numbers. And I think that sometimes it's even more than that. I mean, if you talk to the people inside, it's not quarterly, it's monthly, it's weekly, it's what have you sold today. If we're focused on what have you sold today, this month, this quarter, you will never ever get ahead technically. And you can see it happen with these companies that become so obsessed with their stock price instead of with developing good products for customers. That's why, on the one hand, I do say, oh no, the PE companies, they're going to come in, they're going to load it up with debt, they're going to steal the money, they're going to, screw up the company. On the other hand, I say, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe the company will be able to focus on what it should be focusing on, which is good products and focusing on customer needs. I mean, frankly, I know that the whole VC world needs public offerings. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a company out there that just focused on creating good products and making money and not on going public and making all the money in the universe? I don't know. I'm a dreamer.
I don't know, Alan. That didn't sound like an argument for greed is good. So,
Well, no, he's not from that crowd, obviously. He's a dreamer, right? I mean, come on, by his own admission. It all sounds very kumbaya to me, Stephen, but at the end of the day, it's not about good product. It's about profitability. And it's not necessarily about top line. It's about bottom line. Greed is good. Greed is what made America great.
I don't know, man.
No,
Both you and I have run companies that were not public and were profitable for a long, long time.
Yeah.
There's still owners. It still has to be a well-run company. It just doesn't necessarily have to be responsive to investors and analysts who work for securities firms that have a vested interest in reports. And, they all say that they're completely separate, but none of us believe it. So
let me give you another movie analogy.
Another 80s movie.
Yeah, another 80s movie. This one might be a little later. So instead of Wall Street, let's turn to Goodfellas. Right?
You look like a gangster.
No. Paulie, I want you to be my partner. What do I know about the restaurant business? Come on, be my partner. And then now, and Henry is narrating. He says, now the guy didn't know what he got into with Paulie as his partner. The first thing is Paulie has him sign up for every credit and everything he can, and they're running as quick as the merchandise comes in the front door, it's running out the back door. And when the whole thing goes bad, boom, we just torch it and burn the place down. Let's hope that it's just the Wall Street version of it and not the Goodfellas version of it here, right? That they don't just load this thing up with that and then just torch it and burn the place down. Because it is a good company with good products, with a strong position in the market, and I hope they don't screw it up. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
All right, let's take a break here on Techstrong Gang. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about, it sounds like we're getting serious about fighting or at least attempting to fight on deepfakes. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey folks, we're back and we're returning to the subject of deep fakes. I don't think we've talked about this for a few months, but state of New Jersey is now taking the lead on a bill that has been approved by both houses of their legislature, at least. I don't know if the governor has signed it yet, where they're basically saying certain types of deep fakes will be against the law, and we mean it. Here's my issue, Chris, and I'm trying to figure this one out. So where does that line between like a deep fake that is somebody's expression of freedom of speech and something that is malicious, and kind of where do we draw that line? Because we've all seen Elon Musk and a lot of the social media channels are full of this deep fake crap now. So what is the definition of malicious?
Well, yeah, I love this whole topic, and to Alan's Blues Brothers theme, because it's got everything. It has country and Western, right? This is the public key infrastructure argument from the beginning of time. How do we have the definitive cryptographic identification of source? And anybody, that knows PKI and security, it's one of my cartoon issues. How did we fix it? Yeah, we kind of didn't, and we fudged around and we did interesting things that kind of worked, but no, it's a bigger issue than that. And I like the way you frame the question, because this one asks everything. How do I tell the difference between a deep fake that I make as a deep fake for artistic creation and so forth, and a deep fake that I make as a deep fake for the purpose of malicious intent? Hold my coffee. We have to talk through everything. I mean, on my general view, though I haven't looked at the specific policy at this point, I expect that if, and God help me, probably when I do, I'll have the same sort of feeling as I did about, federal cybersecurity regulation in the 90s. We'll express ourselves emotionally through legislation. We'll try to act that out through the courts, realize what parts of that were a terrible idea, and move the conversation forward. So I think this, in the next several years, is mostly educating ourselves at every level, from legislation to the average person on the street, to where to even start before you can bring in a geek like me and say, okay, for that we can use XYZ technology or process.
So, Mike, did you say Elon Musk was full of crap?
I suggested that some of the content was a little on the spurious side, shall we say.
But not Elon himself, certainly.
Oh, of course not. He's a gentleman and a scholar if I ever saw one.
Anyway, couple of other thoughts on this. Since when does New Jersey do anything first on technology legislation? Who paid who over here? This seems like a fugazi deal to me, as they say up in New Jersey. So I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Right. Well, I think that there are other states that are trying to do something similar. And to be honest, there was this whole Defiance Act that the U.S. Senate passed when there was a deep fake involving Taylor Swift, and then they sent it over the House, where it promptly has disappeared. In fact, I couldn't find any coverage of the Defiance Act in the last 60 days. So here's what I'm kind of thinking about. Maybe the states are going to try to take the lead on this, which would be nice. But I'm also scratching my head because, to Chris's point about it's an emotional expression, which might mean zero. And so, Stephen, is this a technology conversation really about how to defeat this stuff? And, all the legislation in the world won't matter until we get the tools.
Well, right now, I think that it's actually fairly easy to detect deepfakes because they make mistakes and they don't look convincing. But I wouldn't count on that for long. It was the same with AI generated content, and that's gotten a lot better. Writing, video still looks terrible, but hold your breath. Maybe it'll happen soon. I think that it really comes down to the question of not of tools and technology, but of intent, and that's really what the law is all about. As Chris pointed out, there's a big difference between creating a deep fake to skew an election or push crypto investments, and creating a deep fake for other reasons. And I'd like to bring in the concept of parody, which thankfully is protected by the U.S. Constitution, specifically because in the 18th century, parody and satire were alive and well, and very much part of the discussion here in the U.S. of creating this country. I think that parody and satire should be protected, but as anyone who's been on Facebook knows, we also have a bit of a gullibility problem here, where something that was intended to be parody or satire can be taken seriously by people. This whole thing, though, says to me that it really doesn't matter what the intent was, or it doesn't matter what the effect was as much as what the intent was. We need to be focusing the law, just like we always have, on punishing people with bad intent in order to correct their behavior. If someone is creating deep fakes for pornographic exploitation of minors, well, then they're pretty much, right out. If they're creating deep fakes to skew an election or to have some sort of effect on financial markets or to steal money from people, well, again, that's the important thing. It's not the deep fakes that's important. It's the intent of the perpetrator that's important. And I see Chris nodding, so I think we might agree here.
Right. And Tylenol. Remember the Tylenol? We didn't have shrink wrap around the tops of caps, but somebody wanted to short the market, make a lot of money, go to jail for it, right? Which was already illegal at the time. And they did it. And same in this space. And again, anyone that didn't see this coming from a million miles away is missing the point, right? In 1990, General Electric, we had a video conference center. We had a tape, to test out this new system, and it was the world's leading animations at the time. When world champion winning some competition, but it was dinosaurs walking around with silver skins, but moving and I remember sitting there looking at that, saying, at some point in the future, you will be able to make video that won't stand up in court. Video won't be allowed anymore. I hadn't even gotten into security professionally at that point, but it's still bloody obvious. This is where we're going. Like you say, Stephen, it's going to make mistakes now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it won't. What are we going to do? Right? It's already illegal to do these things, though. As a security technology and policy person, I think, again, this comes back to, in the last segment, SolarWinds, ITSM, supply chain, these things have vulnerabilities that get exploited because it's too bloody hard to tell what's going on. And this is taking this issue to 7, not even to 11, to 7,000. It's forcing us to figure out how we have some visibility into and I'm not gonna throw around a lot of industry words, attribution, who did what. I know I can do all sorts of things online and get away with it because nobody can tell anything. That's why this is an issue, not because you can make a fake video, but because there's no way to tell anything from anything else, and that has to get fixed.
I just was going to say
And
about
it will.
building onto what you said and also what Stephen said about intent. I think that's going to be, there's debate on, was that the impetus of the attention of this, because we just had an election and there was a lot of concern. I know we talked about it on the Techstrong gang about deepfakes and at the time of elections. But at the same time, we're having that rise of cybercrime and the rise of really abhorrent crimes where people are getting calls that with a deep fake voice of a relative that's
Robocalls.
yeah, the robocalls they've been kidnapped or they've been arrested, they need money right away. So that escalation as well, where I think that some of the deep fakes going along with intent could be an add-on or an enhancement to exist when they're added to a crime like sexual exploitation, or in the case of what I was saying, a crime where they're pretending to be someone else to get money. That's just something for lawmakers to explore, but it could be something that's an enhancement as well.
I was reading about that whole kidnap thing, and then I was reminded, back when they invented the telegraph, one of the scams they ran was to send people a telegram saying that they had kidnapped their relative in Chicago when they were in Boston, and nobody knew, so they paid.
Well, technology at its time. But, here's the point. Obviously, if something is illegal, it's illegal. And we should do something about it. And we should have laws on the books. I think the point, though, here is something Stephen made and then Chris reinforced, which is, I don't think it's that far off. I think it's a lot closer than you think, that these deepfakes get really, really good. And it's going to be very, very, very hard to distinguish a deepfake from legit. And so, I want to call out in our notes here, the good folks at the University of Florida, go Gators, right, have started a study that could lead to better deepfake detection, because that is that's going to be where the battle is. That's going to be the frontier on the war. It's going to have to be detecting the deep fakes. Then you can go prosecute who did them, assuming you can find who did them. And it's not just, Bonnie, what you spoke about is sort of one-to-one deep fakery, if you will, right? It's the deep fakes in our social media. It's the deep fakes, right, that have wider societal impact that we've got to work. So shout out to the Gators. I
Right.
will mention,
Proving intent is going to be really hard, though, because, these relationships between these people are not easily discernible. And I'll just stand in front of the court and say, that parody of Jerome Powell that I created, I have no idea that was tied to this pump and dump scheme for cyber currencies. And meanwhile, I probably have an offshore account somewhere, but you don't know.
And that is very common already in social media, where people will create obviously misleading stories, and then they'll at the bottom it'll be like, this is satire, this is parody, but the action, the result was the same. The result was the same as an outright lie. And I'm honestly pretty sick of people calling things satire that really are not satire. Now, I am a fan of satire. I'm a fan of parody of The Onion and so on. But if you're creating a website that is just fake, fake news, political lies, and in the bottom you say this is satire in order to promote this worldview, it's really, and that brings us to another aspect of this story too, which is, frankly, I was pretty dismissive of the technology before, but one of the differences here is that the technology has gotten so good that this has become easier to do, quicker to do, and more widespread. And so you can kind of flood the zone with badness very, very quickly in a way that you really couldn't. I mean, we've had not deep fakes, but we've had like fakes of, pornography and people's voices and so on for a long time. But the fact that somebody can do this with little technical expertise, little artistic talent, and just quickly, bang this stuff out, that does cause problems for the slow-moving legal and court system.
But Stephen,
I-
go ahead, Chris.
Two things. I think, Alan, you inadvertently coined the phrase deep flake, which we can unfold later. But also I think that everything everybody's saying is true. However, at the same time, you said a string of words, Alan, that really struck me. I can't get them back in my head exactly, but it may be very, very hard to prove that something is fake. It is not nearly as hard to prove something something is real. If I'm making something and I want to not get it swept up in the deep fake thing, there are lots of ways for me to be really, really clear that this is real. And I think that's a nutrient gradient in the evolutionary landscape. And I've been arguing this from a lot of directions for a long time. I mean, supply chain is another one. And this is just, like I say, like a caricature of it. But when it becomes economically and otherwise beneficial, to just be clear, I'm making this artifact. It's me that made it. That's my artifact. And if somebody wants to make a deep fake of it, it won't have that. And that's relatively easy to do compared to trying to prove that something that with no.
So, all right.
just
So
based on
you're
the file.
talking like watermarks and stuff, whatever the technology of the day is.
Attestation, yeah, whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
So if
yeah.
it doesn't have that, it can be, assuming people would then look for that. But to Stephen's point, most people don't. And so you could write on the bottom, there's a parody just to cover CYA, and most people don't even get that far and they suck it up. Or you could say, well, we're really a news and entertainment organization, not just news. So when you sue me, I can't be responsible for libel because it's part of the entertainment. Looking at you, Fox News. So
I'm glad you said it. I was going to.
I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Well, no, there's some people a little slow on the uptake out there. So I just want to make sure we're aware. But and that's it's a problem in this world, right?
And one more problem is that we've already seen politicians with real video and real audio saying, well, that was a deep fake. I never said that.
Yeah.
And that's another problem.
Well, that again, do we need to demand that all real stuff be watermarked or somehow authenticated?
Or, but this is where the economics come back into play, much to the point of the conversation in the last segment. I think because these issues are so problematic means expensive. They take time, they take effort, they slow me down and doing other things. When there becomes a way to not have to do that anymore, and I'm competing with somebody else economically, biologically, whatever, and I don't do that, and they do, they become more efficient, they become more profitable, they become more competitive. So we always have a choice in security. Do we force people to do the right things? Do we regulate it? Do we mandate it? Or are we sometimes in a place where if you don't do it, you'll just be more expensive and less profitable and you'll go out of business? And I think this is pushing, all these issues are pushing down that path.
I hope so.
It'll just be more expensive not to deal with it.
Well, necessity's the mother of invention. I'll come up with something. Hey, let's take a break here. We're going to come back. Bonnie has a new video out, a report on energizing Stargate that we want to talk about. You're watching Techstrong, gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Welcome back to the Techstrong gang. Well, we've been talking a lot about AI and energy use lately on the gang. There's one big 500 billion venture that's been in the news with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank. So I decided to take a closer look at this with talking to the CEO of Energy Exemplar, David Wilson, to see his take on it.
What do you think Stargate and the implications of it are for the future, for data centers and for energy? Is it a signal of this rapid growth that we're seeing going forward? Where do you see all of this?
Yes. So it's like it literally is a fascinating day today as we look at the competing models come out and the active debate about how efficient can you AI models be. And so really the DeepSeek's come out and said it uses only 5% of the compute resources that some of the other models like OpenAI and that have used to date. If that's true, that translates directly to energy consumption. So you'd only need 5% of the energy that was anticipated. We'll wait and see where that shakes out. But regardless, there's a huge future for AI. I think it's one of if you look at the transformative things in human history, industrial revolution, the internet, and AI is certainly in that bucket. And so the demand will continue to grow. It's just a little hard to put an exact number on how much energy will come into the future. But even if you took out, the bulk of what's forecast, it's still a massive number. So we're going to see a huge amount of new build generation, a huge amount of transmission upgrades to move the energy around. So it's a fascinating time.
It really is. And David Wilson, CEO of Energy Exemplar, it's really a pleasure to have you on and kind of walk us through this exciting time, as you mentioned, with AI in the news, data centers, and of course, the Stargate project. Thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's been a pleasure.
Well, one other note that wasn't in the interview was that David Wilson was saying that in general, with all the data center attention and expansion, that his business has been busier than ever, which I guess is not really surprising. But he seemed to be enthusiastic about AI's use to mitigate energy use with their technology. But of course, as we've talked about in previous Techstrong gangs, that remains to be seen. But it's an interesting topic that is a big topic of conversation in the sustainability world right now.
It's interesting. Look, no matter how you slice and dice it, if we're going to build all these data centers, we're going to need energy to run them. And I don't think drill baby drill is a successful policy at that scale, right? However, interesting to this point, last Friday, maybe it was Thursday or it was last week, late last week, filed under the Red Scare Menace label in the drawer. Satellite imagery has picked up that the Chinese are building a huge new plant that appears to be nuclear fusion. And they might be announcing a breakthrough in commercial nuclear fusion, combining that with DeepSeek breakthroughs and Alibaba's and the rest. And oh my God, we're losing the space race to the Chinese. So, all kidding aside, I'm not kidding about that. That was a report. And
That might be a future very large hole in the ground someday too, right? So
could
it
be, could be. But
Or
yeah,
it could just freaking not work.
right.
it might.
I mean, that's the thing about technology. I mean, there's a long gap between we thought of this idea and we got it working in the lab, and then there's an even bigger gap between we got it working in the lab and it's a productive part of society and industry.
But even, sorry.
So there are two sides to this conversation that always come up, right? And we've talked about one of them before, which is the software will get better, right? That's one of the things about DeepSeek is that it is consuming infrastructure a little more efficiently. So maybe we don't need as much power. On the other end of the spectrum, though, there are reports out there. I think there's one in Futurism or whatever. I'm talking about that the estimates for how much energy will be required by these AI models is woefully under what the actual consumption requirement is going to be. And the numbers are being projected by people who have a vested interest in saying it's not going to be as high. Well, other folks are saying it's going to be orders of magnitude higher. So I don't know, Stephen, what's your take here?
Well, I think that there's kind of a twofold thing going on here. So DeepSeek showed us that we can optimize AI model dramatically and reduce their energy consumption, both in terms of training and inferencing dramatically. And that's really good. But as I've said on Techstrong Gang previously, we're only talking about LLMs at this point, and that really is Tinker Toys and GUIs when it comes to AI. What we're going to have and what is going to be built and what Jensen Huang talked about and during his keynote at CES is a entirely different level of
order
AI.
of magnitude.
Yeah, an order, and maybe more than, Bonnie's guest said, multiple orders of magnitude in terms of complexity. Every optimization coming out of researchers, every optimization that was used by DeepSeek is very, very welcomed, but that doesn't mean that the energy projections are any less, that they're too high. And in fact, I agree with you. I think that they're probably too low. And I do want to call attention to what he said in there about renewables, because again, as I've been saying, every time I get an opportunity to, renewables are going to be deployed in ever greater numbers, as he said, and this is a quote from him, simply because the economics are so compelling. If you can build, nuclear, fission, fusion, coal, whatever, all of those things are not as economically compelling as solar and wind. And it doesn't matter if a politician doesn't like wind power. It doesn't matter if a politician doesn't want to subsidize solar panels. If they are so much cheaper, then that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to build. And it's the same thing with battery technology. Battery technology has been improving dramatically, and the worldwide adoption of electric cars has driven incredible advances in battery technology to the point where, again, as your guest talks about, we're going to have the ability to have renewable energy into batteries at the kind of scale needed to power AI data centers, and no amount of knee-jerk, backward-looking, regressive thought is going to stop us going to renewables.
I feel like a reoccurring theme throughout the show.
Yeah.
Have I said that before? I feel like I have.
No.
But I will give you a prediction on that, right? So here in Westchester County, where Harrison is, they spent a long time trying to close down a nuclear reactor that was on the Hudson forever and a day. I'll bet you that if Google, Microsoft, or AWS showed up and a month from now and said, hey, everybody in Westchester County, we'll give you free electricity if you let us take over that nuclear power plant, and we're going to use it to run data centers, and you get here's your little side benefit. Everybody's going to say yes, regardless of any other implications. They're going to just be
I
like,
think you're underestimating the NIMBYs.
It's
Well, and also you're underestimating the economics there because again, even when we were hearing about Microsoft and Google and Amazon restarting nuclear power plants, the numbers, the actual dollar numbers they were talking about for the cost of electricity was more than twice the cost of on the free market and more than 4 times the cost of solar energy.
No,
Are
if you're
they
going to use
really gonna
nuclear, you've
start-
got to use next gen nuclear. These little mini
those
reactors.
don't exist.
You know, I
fantasy.
they take a while.
I find hope in inefficiency, right? You know, I worry about the gaps. You can die in the gaps, right? And Stephen, you said that at the beginning of the segment. You know, but the entire, you know, you talk about the efficiency of the AI models. Turns out the ones we knew a couple of weeks ago were terribly inefficient, and they could actually make themselves more energy efficient. The entire energy system, which I spent a lot of time in, you know, for many, many years, it's inefficient at every level, which is good because as you have the needs, the drivers, and the economic, you know, willpower, you can go after that efficiency. And there was so much room because we're not going to use less energy on AI. We are going to use exponentially more than you think we, you know, to the point, you know, if you want to be a environmental alarmist about it and, you know, and write a book like The Population Bomb, 1968, which should all burn in hell, and say that, you know, the Earth could ever feed more than 3.54 billion people. Well, wrong. We can get more efficient. And the petro, you know, fuel chain is almost completely inefficient. There's almost no energy comes out of it. You know, solar panels can give you 20, 22, 26% of the light hitting it. That's pretty amazing. But yeah, from the macro to the nano level, there's so much efficiency to be gained in the power systems. And yeah, as we're learning in the AI models and so forth, that is both, you know, as much as you think more power, but not necessarily as bad. Now, again, if we don't cross that gap correctly, we can melt the planet. So let's not do that.
I just want to also say next week, I have a report coming out where this is a big topic about AI and energy use, an ecotech report that I guess it was almost 100 people that I interviewed, and AI and energy use and innovations in those areas from smaller models to new sources of energy is all featured in the report. And I'm sure I'll be talking about that more as the weeks to come.
Where can people go find that report,
Oh,
Bonnie?
thanks. Ecotechreport.com is where I have the executive summary right now and a little briefing, and it will be published in full on February 19th.
Excellent. Excellent. Guys, I think that's going to wrap up our Techstrong gang for today. We've got a great Tuesday of Techstrong TV following this. Just a quick shout out. If you didn't check yesterday's or didn't catch yesterday's Techstrong gang, our gang members did make their Super Bowl predictions from the Friday before. And I would go on there and say, hey, who had it right and who had it wrong? Just say it.
Hey,
There you go. I picked the Eagles over 40.
Oh, you
but
did?
yeah,
Wow.
I don't think that was really a shootout by any definition of the game, though. So just
no, but
because
I
you-
did pick the Eagles to have 40 points.
I looked at that score and I saw it differently. What I saw was Eagles 40, referees 22.
That's a whole other.
It is. Well, look, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles and all of their rabid fans. And thank you very much, New York Giants, for giving them Saquon Barkley, though they did keep Barkley relatively quiet. It was their defense. Defense wins championships. We'll leave it at that, though. We'll be back tomorrow with a lot more great Techstrong gang. Stephen, do we have Tech Field Day at Cisco Live this week?
We do. We're going to be live streaming from Amsterdam with Tech Field Day at Cisco Live at 1300 European Central European time, which is, I don't know, look it up in your local time zone.
Probably 8 or 9 East Coast time because it's about 6 hours before us.
Yeah, so that's both today, Tuesday and Wednesday. And of course, those things are going to be recorded and will be available on YouTube as well on the Tech Field Day page.
Fantastic. All right. Until next time, then, this is Alan Schimmel. Thanks for watching. We're out of here.